Hey guys, it's me, Crazy Monkey. What's up, Sluggos? You're here on the Foundry, and from the title, you might, you know what this is. Let me explain. So basically, we had the idea, since I'm the zombie master, that I was gonna explain the whole zombie storyline to you guys, the Treyarch zombie storyline. We're not gonna focus on, Infinite Warfare, none of that. And I'm also a little drunk, and I'm gonna explain it to you guys in the best of my capable memory because I'm very good at that. And so yeah, we're gonna crack open some beans, like on the Black Ops 3 zombies menu. We got the campfire rolling. Uh, what character would you be? I feel like I would be the hooker from Shadows of Evil if I was anything. I don't know what's in this can actually. It might be beans. It's SpaghettiOs. SpaghettiOs, yay. So yeah, we're gonna start. Uh, After I take this little scoop, mmm, that's so good. So I want to go map to map. We're not gonna do this in chronological. I'll explain things that happened at the beginning when we get to that map, if it comes to it. So, where's my tools? Okay. So we got World at War. That's what we're gonna start with. We're gonna start with World at War. Yeah. World at War. And we got 4 maps on World at War. We got Notched. Yeah, I'm not even gonna spell that. There's Notched. And then we got Verrucked. And then we got Shinonuma. And then we're gonna have Darice. Okay, so let's start here. So, Notched. Basically, the story behind Notched is there's 4 U.S. troops, and they're in an airplane heading over Berlin, Germany during World War II, and their airplane crashes in an airfield. They get shot down, and they crash into a German truck carrying Element 115, which is what makes zombies. And so in the process, when they crash into the truck, all the dead platoon from the airplane crashed into a whole platoon of Germans. They all turn into Nazi zombies, and then you have to fight off the undead at an airfield. Boom, that's the story for that one. It's pretty simple. So word of that gets back to the American government, and they're like, well, what the fuck? What was that? And they figure out that the trucks were being driven by a secret Nazi organization called Group 935. Okay, we're gonna take a shot to that. Every time I talk about Group 935, we're gonna take a shot. So we got the vodka like Nikolai would like, eh? So then they decide to send a secret team, which consists of Tank Dempsey, Peter O'Hare, I believe his name is, and then 2 other American soldiers. And they go to investigate the Verruck facility and asylum, where they find a lot of experiments being used on patients in this German facility with Element 115. In the process, the Germans arrive while the American soldiers are fighting off the zombies, and Peter ends up escaping, Peter O'Hare. The 2 other are confirmed dead, and then Tank Dempsey is kidnapped by the Nazi scientists, by Group 935, and basically he gets kidnapped, and his purpose will explain soon where he goes. Okay, so then that's the end of Verruck. So then we got Shinonuma. So then what happens in Shinonuma? Basically, there's a separate division of the Axis powers in Japan, and 935 is partnered with another division, basically called what are they called? Division 9. Yeah, they're called Division 9, and Division 9 has a facility in Japan called Shinonuma, and yeah, or Shinonuma is the name of the map. I don't know the name of the facility. It's the Shinonuma facility. So basically, Richtofen needs to retrieve a journal he has at the Shinonuma facility. In the process, Peter O'Hare, which you might, recognize, it's the most iconic thing in the map when you start, the hanging man with the missing leg, that's supposed to be Peter O'Hare. When he escaped, he went on another mission to go infiltrate Division 9 after what he saw at the Varuk facility, and in the process he landed, and his parachute, he fucked up, and he died. He's dead. He's the hanging body, So Peter's dead. He's not important. So Richtofen needs to retrieve journals that he had at Shinonuma, and so in the process he summons the. Hang on, I gotta go to my cliff notes because these are the parts that really confuse me. The original crew is referred to as the Ultimus crew. So this is where the Ultimus crew comes in, which is Nikolai, Dempsey, Richtofen, and Takio. And this is the crew from World at War to Black Ops 1. And so him and that crew, they go to retrieve his diaries at Shinonuma. And you might be thinking, well, why are these guys working with them? We'll get to that. Okay, so then they retrieve the diary, and then from there, they travel to Darice. Not to be mistaken for Die Rise. We'll get to that later. We're not there yet. But we got Darice, okay? And so this is the like home ground of Group 935. Yeah, cheers. And you figure out that a lot of shit went down at Darice. This is when, I just tried putting the orange juice cap on the vodka. This is where, a lot of the shit starts going down. And you figure out that there's another scientist, or there was a scientist there at the Darice facility named Dr. Maxis, and he's very important to the story. So, Dr. Maxis also has a daughter named Samantha, and then there's another doctor there named Dr. Steiner, and then they're all working together at this Darice facility in Group 9. He runs Group 935. Fuck me. And basically, at this facility, they're trying to develop wonder weapons for the Nazis to use during World War II, like the Wunderwaffe DG2. And there's also a scientist named Porter that's there, and he's working on the ray gun. He creates the ray gun. And basically, while Dr. Maxis and his group of scientists are working on these wonder weapons, Dr. Richtofen has ulterior motives, and he's working on teleportation, something that Maxis sees completely useless. He doesn't see how teleportation is going to help them during the war, and so Richtofen and Dr. Steiner are working behind Maxis' back to work on teleportation. And during Richtofen's first teleportation experiment, he ends up getting teleported to the moon, and while he's on the moon, he just discovers this thing called the MPD, and it's a pyramid, okay? And he goes, well, what the fuck is this thing? It's a giant pyramid. And while he's there, there's voices in his head talking to him about this pyramid, and enter the pyramid, set us free, and illusions of ultimate power. And so he ends up teleporting back to Earth, and he tells Dr. Steiner, hey, there's some shit up on the moon we gotta go check out. And now Richtofen's in like complete delusional state because he's got fucking voices in his head. And who are these voices? They are the Apothecans. Who are the Apothecans? We'll get there, but don't worry. So then they just start developing a facility on the moon called Griffin Station. And basically these voices in Richtofen's head tell him that he'll have control over this thing called the Aether, which is the Aether is basically heaven in this universe. And if he enters the pyramid, he'll have control over the Aether, and this thing drives Richtofen mad. So he builds Griffin Station around this pyramid for intentions that he's going to somehow enter this pyramid. Accidentally, Dr. Steiner steps on a rat next to the pyramid, and it starts charging it, and that's when they discover, oh, we need souls to charge this pyramid, because the pyramid's just completely dormant. And so then they start bringing Nazi troops up to the moon, and they start sacrificing them to the pyramid, prepping it for Richtofen to enter the pyramid. While all this is happening, Dr. Maxis is down at Darice, and he's just kicking it, thinking everything's all honky-dory and stuff. And then Richthofen's basically ready to enter the pyramid, and he's like, I'm just gonna fucking kill Maxis for fucking shits and giggles. He doesn't really have a motivation behind it, because once you're a god, what does that do to pose a threat to you? He doesn't. So he's like, since you wanted to shit on my teleportation device so bad, I'm just gonna teleport you to fucking nowhere and just kill you. I don't know where you're gonna go, but you're fucked. And so he locks Dr. Maxis and Samantha in a teleporter, and he teleports them. In the process, he sends Dr. Maxis to a place called the Crazy Place, which is it's the ether, which the ether is like the core of everything that exists in a way. I don't know. It's like everything that's around us that's good, because there's also a dark ether. So he sends him to the ether, where he's like this omniscient being pretty much. Samantha gets teleported to the moon, and in a panic of just like being, like just presented before she was teleported, like potentially that like Dr. Richtofen was going to kill her and her father, she teleports to the moon and she panics and she runs up to the pyramid, which is prepped for Dr. Richtofen to enter, and she ends up becoming, oh shit, I spilled my vodka, and she ends up becoming the catalyst for basically controlling the dark ether. The voices in Richtofen's head were lying to him. They were trying to use him for a darker purpose. So Samantha becomes this catalyst, and they're like, how the fuck do we get her out of the pyramid? And Richtofen's like, well, the only thing that could possibly get her out of the pyramid is Maxis, her father. So they end up finding Maxis in the Crazy Place in the ether, and they bring him to the moon, and they're like, Maxis, you have to tell her to get out of the fucking pyramid. And then Maxis's last wish is to kill everyone who is associated with Richtofen or Group 935, or whoever assists Group 935, which kickstarts basically Shino Numa and Doris. But from that, Samantha exacts her revenge through the zombies. And so basically at the Doris facility, he just collects some shit he needs, and then they dip out of there. But all that backstory is very important to what happens there, which we move on to Black Ops 1. Alright, so we're done with these. We got to that part. Now we got Black Ops 1. Black Ops 1 on. So Black Ops 1, we're in Verrückt, and you might be wondering, how the hell did we get to fucking Verrückt? Or not Verrückt, I'm so sorry. We get to, what's the damn theater? Kino der Toten. So, what do I do with that goddamn pen? Oh, fuck me. You're gonna hate me, mate. Oh, okay, so I was like, bro, I lost all your fucking pens. So we got Kino. I'm wondering, okay, so how do they get to Kino? Kino takes place in the 60s. Basically, Richtofen, when they returned to Doris, was trying to teleport himself back to the moon, and he failed. And in the process, he ended up time traveling because he got some calculations wrong on the teleporter, and they ended up teleporting themselves to this 1960s, and that's where Kino takes place. And so the Kino laboratory was also a facility of Group 935 with research there. And so he's able to take things from the Kino facility, and he knows from there he has to take other steps to go to other facilities to retrieve things that he needs. Kino's not, it doesn't really have a lot of substance and importance to it. But this next map, the next map we got coming, we got Ascension. Yeah. great ass meth. So then Ascension comes. Ascension, then you know, they go from Kino to Ascension. Richtofen's like, I need some shit from there first. That's not really explain what. I mean, it probably is. I just don't know. So basically, they're like, we're gonna go to Ascension now. That end was a little too long. So we're gonna go to Ascension now. And so they go to Ascension, and in the process, oh yeah. So in the it was up here. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, it's in my pocket. So in the in the process of them going to Ascension, coexisting with Ascension, we got five. So 5 also takes place at the exact same time with Ascension. So you might be wondering, what has Samantha been doing this whole time between the 40s and 1960, whatever? You know, how did she even find them? And so, to explain this, there's a doctor, there's a scientist. John also wanted to know what the fuck the scientist did in 5. So it was a scientist named Yuri, and this scientist was experimenting with 115, element 115, because you know at this time, Group 935, fuck me, completely vanished in the 40s, and you know there was no one left behind except the people on the moon. Well, not even them, because you know Samantha's bloodshed and vengeance for her father was required to wipe out anyone involved with Group 95. So everyone was dead except for Richthofen and the rest of the Ultimus crew. No, wait. The Primus crew. I think that's what they're called. I got my notes. The Ultimus crew. Okay. So the rest of the Ultimus crew just vanished for like 20 years. And so she's just like chilling, waiting. And so there's this doctor named Dr. Yuri that works at the Pentagon. And he, basically what he does, he experiments with Group 115, not Group, he experiments with element 115. And that makes him go a little crazy. But in the process, he's able to have a connection with Samantha with element 115. And which like awakens her to the real time. And so the people at the Ascension facility are also in contact with the people at the Pentagon, and technically through that, once the crew, the OG crew, you know, Richtofen and all them, arrive at Ascension, everyone at Ascension is completely wiped out. And since they're in connection with the people at the Pentagon, at the time, you know, John F. Kennedy, Fidel Castro, Richard Nixon, and then the nerdy dude, he was there too. And they also get attacked by zombies because technically they're helping the people at Ascension, you know, and Richthofen, even though they're not voluntarily doing that, they're connected. And so Samantha has to kill them, which starts the 5 incident. And by this point, the scientist, Yuri, is just batshit crazy out of his fucking mind. So that's why he's running around stealing your guns and shit, you know, what a fucking dick. And so then the Ascension crew, they go there and they discover this thing called the Gersh device. And there's a scientist there who also has teleported himself into the ether through his Gersh device, which is like a black hole. Basically, like, it's teleportation, mobile teleportation. And so our crew has to help him because he's kind of like talking to them and stuff. And it's throughout Ascension, they have to help him go to Agartha, which is like heaven. And so, and then the Ascension Easter egg, you free him from his prison, and you retrieve the Gersh device, and you're able to free him, and then you guys move on from Ascension. And with the Gersh device, you're able to basically teleport where fuck me. And basically, Richthofen uses the Gersh device to teleport him and the other 3 bros to Siberia, which takes place in the map Call of the Dead. Yeah. So now we get to Call of the Dead. And you're like, well, what the fuck does that have anything to do with them? You don't even play as them. I'm going to tell you how, because obviously you haven't played the Easter egg if you don't know what happens. And I'm going to tell you. So here we go. So Call of the Dead takes place in 2011 when Black Ops 1 came out. God damn it, I'm fucking old. So Black Ops 1 comes out in 2011, and you got Call of the Dead. And so you got Sarah Michelle Gellar, you got Robert Englund, Michael Rooker, Danny Trejo, and they're shooting a movie with George A. Romero, may his soul rest in peace, and they're shooting a movie in Siberia at this old abandoned Nazi facility. If you've watched the Call of the Dead intro, you know George A. Romero explains it to you pretty good. You know, all that shit was real, or whatever he says. All that shit happened here, and that's where Richtofen has intentions to go at the end of Extinction. He wants to return to this Siberia facility for some shit, and he wants to get this thing called the Vril device. And the Vril device is important later, and it's a part of this thing called the Agarthan device, I believe. Let me check my notes real quick. Yeah, I'm right. The Agarthan device. So he wants to get this thing called the Vril device. It's a piece of this thing called the Agarthan device. We'll explain that later. So he decides to teleport himself to the Siberia facility. And when he does, from Ascension in the 1960s, it teleports him to 2011. And you're like, well, fuck, that's a big gap. And it happens to be right when they're filming whatever George A. Romero's zombie movie was going to be. And they're trapped in this room. And they're like, well, what the fuck, we're trapped in this room? This is a shitty situation, Richtofen. But it just happens to be that the actors are there dealing with real zombies just because of them being there, and Samantha, you know, basically on this undying pursuit to kill them. And so basically the actors end up finding the door that they're hidden behind, and they help them, and they get him, Richtofen, the Vril device, which then Richtofen's like, all right, dope, thanks, we're fucking out of here. And then they get out of there, and they're gone, and they dip. You know, what happened to the actors? Obviously, they're cool. I mean, they're all still alive today, so, except George Romero, but he was a zombie in the thing, so, I mean, was he really alive in the game? So, then you get, I'm going to butcher the spelling on this. So then the next map is Shang Roulette. So then you got Shangri-La. The next map is Shangri-La. And this is a aether twisted version of the Himalayas, is what this is. And so Richtofen wants to go to Shangri-La. It doesn't hold a place. So if you play the map, in Black Ops 1, one of the little details I love is that over the course of, if you play World at War, their outfits are pristine, and then Kino, their outfits are a little tattered. Ascension, they're like torn and they have bloody spots. And then you get to Shangri-La and their outfits are pristine again. And it's because it's this like projection of the world it is, rather than it actually being real. Like Shangri-La is not, it's real, but it isn't at the same time. It's an alternate universe. And so basically they have to come here to get this thing called the focusing zone, which goes inside of the Vril device. And so they come here and they figure out that the focusing stone is underground in these caverns, and there's a eclipse mode in the level, and it basically time travels you back in time. And so whenever they activate this like eclipse cycle, they discover there's these two British explorers named Brock and something fucking else, I don't remember, and they're in these catacombs basically, and you figure out that in their original timeline, their true, like what happened to them, they died. trying to explore these catacombs under the Shangri-La temples. And so basically, Richtofen and his crew decide to escort them through these underground caverns and whatnot, so that way they can get the focusing stone at the end and give it to Richtofen, and then in return they get to live, rather than continuously dying, because Brock and what's-his-face are stuck in this endless loop of dying over and over and over again. So they free them from like their purgatory basically, and in process he gets the focusing stone. Richtofen gets what he needs from that, and then we're on to the next map, which is one of my personal favorites, possibly my favorite, not possibly, it's my favorite from Black Ops 1. Then you get Moon. Yeah, now we got Moon. And so in Moon, Richtofen's like, I got everything I fucking need for my plan. We're back at fucking Griffin Station. You know, I'm ready to show this bitch Samantha who's boss, this little asshole. And then he's like, I'm gonna use oh, I forgot to explain one thing. There's one thing I need to explain real quick. Back in Call of the Dead, the importance of the Siberia, we'll explain after this actually, it's tied in. So in Moon, he's got all the boys with him, Richtofen, he's like, we gonna get this bitch Samantha out. So, they arrive at the Moon. Well, actually, they arrive at Groom Lake, which is Broken Arrow's head operations center. Broken Arrow was like the American version of Group 935, which was experimenting with 115. They were at the Pentagon 5 facility. The scientist Yuri was a part of Broken Arrow, and Broken Arrow, their main facility was Groom Lake. And so they arrive at Groom Lake, which is the only teleportation device to the Moon anymore. So they arrive there, and then they teleport to the Moon from there, which is Griffin Station, Richtofen's station that he had back in the 40s in World at War. And everything's like still there that he needs. You know, he's got the Vril device, he's got the summoning, the focusing stone or whatever it was called, and you know that's all he needs. And so basically, if you do the Easter egg, he goes through some steps. He gets this, later it's not revealed it's the summoning key, or later it's revealed it's the summoning key, but there's this ball he puts in the pyramid, and then he puts the Vril device in the pyramid as well, which opens it up and it reveals Samantha. And then he decides, okay, I can swap places with Samantha. And so he hacks into this computer, which you figure out Maxis has somehow like figured out how to embody himself in technology all these years. And so he's in the computer and he's like, chill, Richtofen, you can't keep doing this. And then Richtofen's like, nah, I'm gonna do it, bro. Like, we're in fucking 2011 now. Like, bitch, it's been fucking 70 years. I'm ready to be evil. And so he basically deletes Maxis from these computers, and Richtofen successfully swaps places with Samantha, but only through their souls. It's kind of crazy. Like, Richtofen's in Samantha's like little girl body, and then Samantha's inside Richtofen's fucking, you know, like 55-year-old Nazi body. Like, not a fair trade at all, dude. And so Maxis is actually able to talk to Samantha this whole time because of their connection through the ether and 115 and all that. And so he's talking to Samantha and he's like, you know, you need to lead these other people through these steps. We have to stop Richtofen, because if he has control over the ether, he has control over everything. You know, his ultimate goal is going to be like Agartho, having control over heaven, basically. So he's like, we need to stop that because he needs people to do that. And so then Maxis basically instructs the crew to fucking destroy the Earth with missiles from the Moon. And it's like, what the fuck? It was the craziest shit. I remember doing this shit back in the day. And you're like, where's the game? What's gonna happen next? We just destroyed Earth. What the fuck is that shit? So Max is like, you know, we're gonna destroy the Earth. So Richtofen has nothing to control, basically. And so then they nuke the fucking Earth, and it's fucking catastrophic. It's crazy. Shit pops off. And then, in the process of that happening, whenever the Earth gets nuked, the facility, the Call of the Dead one, gets damaged. Okay, and that's when you figure out that the other three survivors, Takio, Nikolai, and Tank, they all regain their memory back because they've all, up until the end of the Moon Easter egg, they're all stereotypes of like their characters. You know, like Nikolai is the drunk Russian, and Takio is the Japanese soldier that just wants to bring honor to the emperor, and then Tank is just the gung-ho fucking let's kill everything American soldier. And then they all regain their consciousness at the end of Moon when the Call of the Dead facility is damaged. And that's because Richtofen, he would kidnap enemies. And remember back here in Verrückt when Tank Dempsey was kidnapped, he took him to the Call of the Dead facility, voice crack, and he basically brainwashed Nikolai, Tank, and Takio to be like these servants, under Richtofen, if he had like sleeper cell agents, and they were only directed to like think and do exactly what Richtofen wanted. But at the end of Moon, they regain their consciousness and they realize, fuck that guy, we gotta fuck him up. And so then Moon ends, and you're like, well, what happens? Well, we'll explain that in a second. Ah. All right, we need a wipe.
Is this a cut?
Huh?
Is this a cut to the next part?
Yeah, it's Black Ops 2.
So that's the first episode's done?
Sure.
Why don't you do a little outro?
Okay. All right. So that was the first episode.